the teams that we're facing. Aston Villa are facing themselves quite a challenge in terms of injury. Just for the record, in case anyone hasn't been keeping up, it looks like they're going to be missing a couple of key players. Off the top of my head, I know Ezri Konsa, Amadou Onana, Leon Bailey, I think, is touch and go. Boubacar Kamara is going to be missing as well. And that means they're probably looking at Tyrone Mings coming back to the defence alongside the lad they have from Chelsea, Axel Disasi, and they will probably play against us tomorrow night. Pau Torres is still out, and Matty Cash also sidelined. So that is a big old blow for them for sure, and it will absolutely impact how they look against us. And so people have a feel for how they've been doing recently. At the weekend, they had a 1-1 with Ipswich, and that was at home for Villa. Previous to that, they went through to the fifth round of the FA Cup against Tottenham, 2-1 again at home for Villa. Previous to that, they had a reversal on the road at Wolves, and they had a 4-2 win in the Champions League against Celtic on the 29th of January. The two previous Premier League games were 1-1 with West Ham, that was home for Villa, and 2-2 away at Arsenal. So, I mean, when you're having a look at the table, that tells its own story as well. What do you make of Aston Villa? Much vaunted, highly praised, started the season off like a house on fire, did really impressive things in their Champions League run. They sit now on 38 points in 9th place. They are a point behind Fulham. They are 3 points behind Newcastle, who are in 7th, and 5 behind Chelsea in 6th. So there's still some way off those European places, which they had fought so hard to get last season, Jan. What do you make of Villa by way of a challenge for us coming up?
So I think there'll be a few Villa fans who will probably be a little bit disappointed with the season so far. But I always felt that with the Champions League, having to play 8 matches in the Champions League, and if you look at their matches, their results either side of those Champions League games, they found it really difficult to deal with leading up to a Champions League game and subsequently playing a couple of days after the Champions League game. That's been a massive problem. I look at this Villa team and I always think that they're at their best when they come into a game after the break. And a break in today's football is 6 or 7 days. That's when they look at their best. That's when they look revitalized and they can play with that energy. So you mentioned some results there. And if you dig deep and you look, Ipswich Saturday 1-1. They played over 45 minutes against 10 men. Ipswich had a man sent off in the first half. You then have the defeat at Wolves in the Premier League, which is disappointing. They had a lot of trouble in the Champions League against Celtic. And I think of all the players that you went through, they're injured. I think the key man being injured is Pau Torres. I think they really miss him at the back. He's the one who links it all together. Everywhere else, they're a very, very good Premier League team everywhere else. Midfield, front men, really, really good. I just don't think they got enough quality defensively to be able to cope with us. They got Matty Cash out, so they got the young Spanish boy who just come in from the second tier in Levante. He's only played a couple of games in, so he's probably not up to this level as of yet. So I think we'll be able to punish them. It'll be a great occasion under the lights at Villa Park Wednesday night. They'll give it everything they got, because also they want to get themselves in the more looks like the top 5 now, doesn't it? Otherwise, I think they'll be disappointed in it. But I just have a feeling that our motivation, we got a little slap on Sunday and got away with it. And you just refocus. One thing is these kind of expected to win games. Wolves at home, even Everton away falls into expected to win, isn't it? This is different, but I think the boys will refocus. We're ready for this. We know it's going to be tough. We know it's going to be energetic, and we know they have the quality. So I just think that we'll get it right. Arne would have worked on that leading up to the game and go, listen, these are the games, boys. These are the real difficult ones, but these are the ones that you want as a player, isn't it? Because it gives you an opportunity to show people Yet again, the other week it was Bournemouth away. Everybody goes, "Ooh, this is going to be difficult." Not a problem. Villa, I fancy something similar.
Hopefully that's the case. And just for the edification of those listening or watching, Villa's last lineup was Martinez in goal, Disasi and Kamara. And like I said, it'll probably be Mings in for Kamara because he's out injured. Luka Dean and Garcia, the boy you mentioned, as their fullbacks. McGinn and Tielemans are likely to be the midfield pairing against us as well. And they had Daniel Malen and Ramsey. Morgan Rogers behind Watkins was their attack. Now, here's where we get into an interesting question because unlike us, they actually did a few bits in the break there over the window. I'm wondering what you make of those bits in terms of the signing of Marcus Rashford and Marco Asensio, both on loan, I think. I don't think there's any compulsion for them to buy. So it's an interesting thing. Do you consider them to be very solid additions? I mean, could you see a situation where if Rashford doesn't start, that he could come on like he did against Ipswich and maybe against Liverpool? The guy has a lot to prove, right? He has a lot to prove. Like similarly with Asensio, a player that Liverpool used to be linked with on a semi-regular basis, obviously a baller in his own right, but maybe not out of favour where he was. So what do you make of those two quite high-profile loanees that they've got in?
Yeah, I think they took a chance with both of them. There's no doubt that the talent that they both have, but they seem to have got lost a little bit. Perfect game on Saturday for both of them to come on when Villa were playing 11 against 10. It was obviously one-way traffic, and they got a load of touches, and Rashford hit the bar, and Asensio really should have scored. Had a couple of great chances, isn't it? But whether it's enough, I don't know. I was a bit surprised Villa were as active as they were because what they did, did it make any sense, John Duran? I just think, I look at Villa now and I'm thinking like the game on Saturday against Ipswich. You put John Duran on for the last 20 minutes, lifts the whole ground. You know, he's capable of getting a goal. They sold a centre-half to, I think, Fenerbahce. That didn't make any sense either because they didn't bring anyone else in. And now we're looking at the problems they got in centre-half position. Kamara played there at the weekend. He's a centre midfield player. Now Tyrone Mings has to come in, but he's had a lot of problems over the last 2 years. So it didn't actually make a lot of sense. And then the ones he brought in, Rashford and Asensio and whatever, and even the young right back, they took a chance with all of them. You know, it's like there's none of them you can put your hat on and go, he will come and he'll make a difference. I just wonder. I think Rashford will start Wednesday. You know, I think Unai Emery's probably seen enough, felt that he gained some confidence from his performance on Saturday, and he probably feels, well, okay, at some stage, you know, we have to find out, isn't it? Has Marcus Rashford still got it? So I think he'll play.
And Watkins a little bit unsettled as well, wasn't he, by potential move to Arsenal? I think was very much the thing. So it'll be interesting to see what he will have to offer as well. Lots of love coming from the comments early on. We had Dave's LFC chats, and Dave does a great show himself. So thanks for tuning in, Dave. Thanks for that. Thanks for the hello. Also, we've got there Buzz talking about how Jan's a proper LFC legend, no doubt about it. And here's one that I want you to address mid-show, if we could, from your fellow Jan there, Jan Red Boylan Temple. What's your favourite memory of playing Villa? Anything come to mind there, buddy?
Yeah, one thing that comes to mind, and it's not necessarily a positive one, but it's Ronnie Rosenthal, isn't it? You know, it's just such it's an incredible moment in football. I was playing centre half that day alongside Torben Picnic. Mark Walters had put us 1-0 up, and obviously watching the game, marking up, I think it was Dean Saunders and whoever else. And the next thing, Ronnie Rosenthal runs clean through, goes past the goalkeeper. I turn to Torben Picnic and says something like, you know, 2 goals in front, we're not going to throw this one, you know what I mean? And then the next thing you hear is roar, you know, and you go, and the game's going on. I'm expecting the ball to be in the back of the net, you know. So obviously he's hit the crossbar and we end up losing the game 4-2. Apart from that, I think I only scored once. 85, we do 2-2, I think. I think I equalised a couple of minutes before full time. And then after they equalised, I remember this, we got a penalty. This is before I was on penalty duties. Phil Neal was our penalty taker. We got a penalty and I thought, yeah, Phil, you know, you'll put this away. And Ian Rush took the penalty. And I was like, whoa, you know, Rush never took penalties, did he? And Rush took the penalty and missed. So, you know, I just look back and I think, you know, if we'd have discussed that in the dressing room before the game, if you get a penalty, Phil doesn't want to take it, I'd have gone, I'll take it. You know what I mean? Because Rushy never put his hand up. But there he was, last kick of the game at Villa Park, missed a penalty. Apart from that, we were there in the semi-finals a couple of times. We had the penalty shootout against Portsmouth, which was not a great game, but it ended well. It was a great occasion because it got us to Wembley in 1992. There was the Crystal Palace semi-final, but it was always great competitive games. The early 90s against Big Ron Atkinson, his team, when quite a lot of our players, Ray Houghton and Dean Saunders and whoever else, Steve Staunton, they all went down there and played, didn't they? So they were always good competitive games. It's a terrific stadium, great atmosphere. But I think I'm right in saying 1990, they possibly finished second to us, I think, when we won the league. So they were always a good team. Alan McAnally up front and Andy Townsend and people like that. It's a terrific. Paul McGrath. They had some really, really good players. So I always enjoyed it.
Can I ask you a personal question here? Because that's, apart from my own Liverpool heroes, the one player that, was never associated with the club that I always loved watching was Paul McGrath, because obviously did wonders in the Irish jersey, but also just I thought he had this ability that it was just pure natural. I was aware even at the time as a kid that he wasn't a great trainer or didn't train half as often. Now, you know a lot less, and we knew a lot less in that era, and it comes out afterwards. His book is a real eye-opener. I'm sure you might have read it at some stage yourself. It's a really interesting book, and he comes across as a very sort of, like he does in every interview, a very, very likable fella, very open and honest about, the difficulties he had. But Christ, Jan, what a footballer. You must have obviously shared many a field with him. When you're playing against someone who has that natural ability like that, and actually, floating around in areas which you like to play in yourself. Paul wasn't averse to pushing into midfield and played there for Ireland, and obviously could do a sweeping role, could play centre half in a more traditional way. A real class act, wasn't he? Probably, like I say, my favourite ever non-Liverpool player.
Yeah, I can see why. He was a terrific footballer, technically very good. He was a great athlete. He had a great spring. He was good in the air. And he was as tough as he needed to be. He was not a dirty player, but he was tough. Played against him on many occasions, and always thought he was a good player. But I always think that the biggest sort of tribute any player can get is your teammates, and that's whether it was teammates at Manchester United, whether it was at Aston Villa, and especially the Irish boys. They all go, Big Paul, unbelievable. And I'll tell you a story, Trevor. The 80s. I've gone up, so we played at home on a Saturday. And I'm going up to Manchester to meet Peter Schmeichel and his wife with Miles, and we're having dinner. And they played in somewhere, and it must have been pretty low because we're meeting at 6 o'clock in this hotel. And we walk in, me and Malt, and I go, glass of wine and a pint of lager. And I go to pay and hear this voice, and I can't do that. Well, Paul McGrath has just a squeaky voice, didn't he? And he's big man, whatever. I'll get that. But I've gone, oh, thank you very much. He said, what are you doing? I said, I'll come to meet Peter and his wife. We're having some dinner in the hotel restaurant. And he goes, he said, tell him to fuck off. He said, come and have a with me, man. So he was actually a funny night, Trevor, because we went in the restaurant, obviously booked under the name of Peter Schmeichel. And there was another Danish friends with us, a guy called Michael Bow, who's no longer with us. And we had dinner, and then the waiter come and he goes, I'm really sick, but the chef would like picture. So I was going, yeah, no problem. The chef come to me, he's a full family, so it was devastated, you know what I mean? In Manchester, he thought when they came over, the chef would like a picture. It was with him, whatever. So massive old fan, so bit of a
yes, we there's a Schmeichel thread running through our show, various stories that I do always enjoy, I have to say.